The ruins of Marion 9 stretched far into the horizon, broken. Towers leaned against each other like tired giants. Ash drifted in the air like slow-falling snow, and the only sound was the wind whispering through the bones of dead machines. Jack moved carefully through the rubble, a worn cloak wrapped around his shoulders, a pulse scanner in his hand blinking with low power. He had been scavenging all day, looking for anything useful. Scrap metal, old tech ration packs, or anything he could trade. Back at the human outpost, his boots crunched over shattered glass and alien stone. He turned a corner and froze. There it was, a cage welded to the back of a rusted transport unit, its bars made from old war salvage, and inside a girl. She had silver white hair tangled and falling over her face. Her skin was pale purple, faint bruises scattered across her arms and legs. Chains on her wrists, and her eyes, they didn't blink when she looked at him, wide still, full of something between fear and sorrow. 3 alien women stood nearby, tall, sharp-faced. They were speaking in a language Jack didn't know, but their tone said enough. Laughter, mocking, cold. One of them handed a pouch of ration cubes to another. Without care, without guilt, they turned away from the cage, walked off across the dust, leaving the girl behind like she was trash. Jack stared. He looked at the cage, then back at the aliens. No one stopped him. No one even looked back. He stepped closer. The girl flinched. Her chains rattled as she moved to the corner of the cage, tried to make herself smaller. Jack knelt in front of her, held out his hand. He said softly, "It's okay. I'm not like them. I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. Jack reached into his satchel, pulled out a thermal cutter. The lock sparked once, twice, then snapped. The door creaked open. The girl didn't move. Jack took off his cloak, laid it on the floor of the cage, and backed away. She waited for a long moment. Then slowly she crawled out. Her knees scraped against the metal. Her hands shook as she pulled the cloak around herself. But she didn't run. Jack watched her, wondering what kind of life she had lived, wondering why someone would sell their own like that, or if they even saw her as a person at all. He led her back through the ruins, carefully, quietly. She followed without a word, eyes always scanning, feet silent. When they reached his camp, a small shelter made from scavenged panels and thermal blankets, she sat by the far wall, didn't touch the water he offered, didn't eat the food. Jack tried to talk to her, tried using the few alien words he knew. Nothing worked. She just sat there, wrapped in his cloak, staring at the fire. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about her, the way her sisters had laughed, the way she hadn't made a sound, not even a cry. He turned over on his blanket, stared at the stars through the cracked ceiling. Then he heard it, soft movement, bare feet on metal. He opened his eyes. She was there at the edge of his blanket, curled up, back facing him, still wrapped in the cloak. Jack didn't move. He didn't say a word. He just watched her breathe in, out, in, out. It was the first peaceful thing he had seen in weeks. The next morning, sun rose slowly through the dust clouds. Jack opened his eyes. The girl was still there, but this time, she was sitting looking down at him. And then he heard Ida whisper, so quiet he thought he imagined it. Jack, he blinked, sat up. "What did you say?" The girl looked away, her fingers twisted in the edge of the cloak. She whispered again, clearer this time. Jack's heart beat faster. She had remembered his name. She had listened. He didn't know what it meant yet, didn't know why she chose to speak now, but in that moment, he knew something had changed. She wasn't just some broken thing in a cage anymore. She was a person, with a voice, with a name, and maybe, just maybe, with a future. And Jack, whether he knew it or not, had just become part of it. The desert winds had grown quiet, but the silence between Jack and the girl felt louder than anything else. She hadn't spoken since that morning. Not a single word after whispering his name, not even a glance in his direction, but she followed him. Everywhere, through the broken streets, across blackened fields, into ruined towers that still smelled of smoke and old metal. She walked behind him, close enough to hear his breath, far enough to run if she had to. Jack didn't push her. He didn't ask questions. He just let her be. He called her Lyra. It was a name he found in a book once, a word that meant light in one of Earth's lost languages. She didn't protest, Didn't seem to understand, but she turned her head when he said it. And that was enough. Each day, Lyra started to change. Still didn't speak, but her eyes watched everything. Every movement Jack made, every shadow on the walls, every flicker of firelight. He gave her small tasks, handed her pieces of scrap to sort. She didn't know what they were, but she always figured it out. She was smart. That much was clear one afternoon, while Jack was repairing a signal beacon. Lyra crouched beside him. She touched a cracked lens, flipped it around, slotted it into place like she had done it before. Jack looked at her. Surprised, Lyra didn't smile, but her eyes shimmered with something new, something alive at night. She slept near the fire, wrapped in the same cloak he gave her the first day, still quiet, still careful, but no longer afraid, or so Jack thought, until the screaming started. Was the fourth night he woke to the sound of her voice. Twisted, terrified Lyra thrashed in her sleep, whimpering words in her language. Begging, crying. Jack reached out, touched her shoulder. She jolted awake, eyes wild, breath, sharp, tears running down her cheeks. She pulled away from him, curled into herself, whispering the same word again and again, Rava, Rava, Rava. Jack didn't know what it meant, but his chest hurt hearing her say I didn't. Didn't press. He just sat beside her and waited. When the sun rose, Lyra hadn't moved, but her hand had slowly found its way to his. That day, Jack didn't take her scavenging. Instead, he taught her how to start a fire, how to use a compass, how to say a few human words. Lyra listened carefully, mouth forming each sound like it was a fragile thing. Water safe. Jack. She said his name again, clearer this time, and when he smiled, she tilted her head like she was studying him, like she didn't understand why anyone would smile at her. They shared a small meal. Lyra picked at the food cautiously, but when she saw Jack eat it, she copied in slow, careful, like trust was something she had to chew before swallowing. That evening, as the stars appeared in the cracked sky, Lyra stood on a broken balcony, her hair blowing in the wind. Jack watched her from a distance. She looked peaceful, but her hands were shaking. He stepped closer. She didn't move, and then she spoke. They left me. They said I was weak, said I was broken. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. They sold me for food to survive one more day. They said I wasn't worth more than that. Jack didn't know what to say, so he said the only thing that felt real. They were wrong. Lyra looked at him, eyes wide, mouth trembling. No one ever said that before. Jack nodded. You're not broken. Not to Mesh turned away, but not before he saw her eyes fill with tears. That night, they didn't speak again, but she slept closer, her hand touching his blanket, like she was afraid he might disappear if she didn't stay near. In the middle of the night, Jack heard her voice again, soft, barely there. Jack, thank you. And then silence, the kind that felt safe, the kind that felt like something was finally healing. But the peace wouldn't last, because far across the valley, 3 alien ships cut through the clouds, their engines quiet, their lights dark. They were searching for someone, and they were getting closer. That night ends with warmth and fragile trust. But unknown to Jack and Lyra, alien bounty ships are silently descending in the distance, coming for her, and maybe for him too. The wind over Merian 9 carried dust and secrets, but tonight it also carried the hum of engines. Above the shattered skyline, 3 dark ships glided through the clouds, silent, predatory, their black hulls reflecting no light, their presence leaving no sound. But Lyra felt them. She sat upright long before Jack heard a thing, her eyes wide, her breath shallow, like the air around her had turned cold. Jack stirred from sleep, saw the panic in her face. He reached for her. Lyra grabbed his wrist tight. Urgent. They found Mesh. Didn't have to say more. Jack was already packing their gear, grabbing his rifle, checking his scanner. Even though the screen was still blank, he trusted her. Now they left the ruins at first light, moving fast, keeping low, taking back routes through the canyons. Lyra didn't speak again, but her eyes never stopped scanning the skies. By noon, they reached a forgotten place, a collapsed human bunker, half buried beneath sand and twisted metal. Jack punched the access panel. It sparked, flickered, then opened. Inside was darkness, stale air, and echoes of a war long gone. They hid there, breathing quietly, waiting. Hours passed then. The sound came, footsteps, heavy, metallic, clicking against the stone. Not human, not her kind either, something else. Jack peeked through a broken vent. Two figures moved through the ruins above, tall, clad in armor, made of bone and wires, red lights glowing in place of eyes. They scanned the ground, raised devices that pulsed with deep blue energy. Their voices were sharp, hollow like machines mimicking life. Lyra leaned close to Jack, whispered, "They're not from my world. They buy from my kind. They take people." Experiment control. Jack's grip tightened on his rifle. He had heard rumors of these things, traders of flesh, hunters of rare blood. But now he knew they weren't just stories, and they were after Lyra. As the hunters moved on, Jack and Lyra slipped deeper into the bunker, down through crumbling hallways, past rusted consoles and shattered screens. They reached a lower chamber, a command room once used by Earth's early colonies. Jack powered up a console using his portable cell. The system flickered alive, old data streamed across the screen. Then something strange happened. Lyra stepped forward, her hand brushed against a scanner plate, and without warning, the system lit up. Recognition confirmed. Her name appeared in alien glyphs, but Jack saw the Earth symbol beside it. His eyes widened. "The system knows you." Where Lyra stared at the screen, her lips moved slowly. "I was born during the merging. My blood is not just theirs, it's also yours." Jack felt his chest tighten. "You're part human." She nodded. "My mother was taken from Earth. My father was from the outer worlds. They wanted to study the result. I was the result, and they fear you now because I'm not weak, because I can wake things they've buried." Jack looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't just a girl who had been sold. She was something forgotten, something powerful, and that power was waking up. The console displayed an old project name, Project Genesis file, locked, access denied. Jack backed away. He didn't know what they were stepping into, but it was bigger than a trade, bigger than revenge. Outside, a sound shook the walls. The hunters were closer than before. Lyra touched the console again, and a new door opened behind them, a tunnel hidden for decades, leading deeper into the Earth. Jack didn't hesitate. He grabbed his bag, took Lyra's hand, and ran. The tunnel twisted and dropped, long, dark, silent, but above them, the hunters began to move faster, tracking heat, tracking fear, tracking blood, and they would not stop halfway down. Lyra stumbled. Jack caught her. She leaned into him, breathing hearty. "Can feel them, their minds. They want to break me again." Jack stared into her eyes. "They won't, not while I'm alive." Lyra looked at him, and something shifted in her gaze. Not fear, not pain, something else. Trust. At the end of the tunnel, a new chamber opened up, larger, brighter, filled with glowing cores and humming tech. Jack stepped forward, but Lyra froze. She whispered, "This is where they made me." Jack turned slowly, and before he could speak, an alarm blared overhead. They had been found. Jack and Lyra are now deeper underground, chased by hunters, surrounded by forgotten human technology, and Lyra has just revealed the truth of her blood. But the past isn't done with her, and neither are the enemies closing in. The chamber was alive, not with people, but with energy. It hummed beneath the floor, whispered through the walls, like the place itself remembered everything that happened here. Lyra stood frozen at the entrance, her eyes wide, her breathing slow. Jack watched her carefully. She wasn't just scared, she was remembering. This was not a bunker, it was a lab. A place built by both human hands and alien science. The perfect mix of two broken empires. He stepped toward one of the glowing cores, wiped the dust from an old Earth emblem. Project Genesis. It was real. Not just a legend, not just a rumor whispered in scavenger circles. Program that tried to blend the best of humanity with the strengths of other worlds. A program that vanished after the collapse. And now the result of that experiment was standing in front of him. Lyra, she moved slowly through the room, past empty pods, past cracked tubes filled with dried fluid. She reached a wall console, placed her hand on it. The room responded. Lights flickered on screens, powered up one after another, and a voice filled the air. Soft female human, "Welcome back." Subject Lyra Sovan. Jack turned toward her. "You were born here." Lyra nodded. "They said I was special, that my blood could unlock machines, heal systems, adapt faster than others. Her voice trembled, but when they couldn't control me, they gave me to the others. The traitors, the buyers, my sisters didn't care. They were ordered to erase me, so they did. She looked at Jack, her eyes shining until, "You found me." Jack stepped closer. He placed his hand over hers on the console. "You were never meant to be erased. You were meant to change everything." The console shifted, revealing a chamber behind the wall. Inside was a glass table, and above it, a suspended map of the old Earth colony systems. Lyra stepped inside. The map followed her, moved with her, responded to her presence. Jack stared in awe. "Your body is a key," he said, quietly, "not just to tech, but to knowledge." Lyra nodded slowly. "They hid things inside me. Code, coordinates, memories. But I don't know how to reach them." Jack looked at the map. "Maybe we don't need to reach them yet. Maybe they're coming to us." The map zoomed in on their current location, then blinked. 3 red signals, moving fast. They found the tunnel. Lyra gasped. Her body shook. "They'll kill you. They'll take me again." Jack raised his rifle. Not without a fight, but Lyra grabbed his arm. "No, there's something here. Something that can stop them." She ran to the far wall, pressed her palm against another panel. A hidden door opened. Inside was a containment chamber, and in the center a glowing crystal core, wrapped in metal bands, pulsing with deep white energy. "This is the last piece of Genesis. The fusion seed." Jack stared. "What does it do?" Lyra turned to him. "It can power a city or destroy one. If it bonds with my DNA, it becomes a living pulse. It can knock out any ship that gets too close." Jack blinked. "Then we use it." Lyra hesitated. "It might hurt me. It might change me." Jack stepped forward. "He'll stay with you. Whatever happens, you're not alone anymore." Her hands trembled, but she reached for the core. The moment her fingers touched it, the room exploded in light. Her body lifted into the air. Her hair flowed like fire. The glow wrapped around her, entered her skin. Her eyes turned silver, then white. Jack shielded his eyes, called her name. "Lyra." The light faded. She collapsed in his arms. Her skin was cold, but her heart was still beating. The core now pulsed behind her, connected, alive. Jack held her close, spoke softly. "You did it. You're stronger than all of them." Lyra opened her eyes, whispered, "Fair." Here Jack turned toward the entrance. The air shifted. The hunters had entered the outer tunnel, but this time Lyra was ready. She stood slowly, her body glowing faintly, her voice calm. "No more running." Jack looked at her, and for the first time he didn't see a scared girl. He saw a force they could never control. Lyra has unlocked the hidden core of Project Genesis. She's now bonded with ancient tech that gives her real power. But as the hunters break into the final chamber, Lyra stands to face them. Not as prey, but as something entirely new. The walls shook, dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered. Lyra stood still, eyes glowing faintly, her fingers pulsing with soft light from the Genesis core now fused inside her. Jack raised his rifle, his stance steady, but his heart raced outside. The chamber footsteps echoed, slow, measured, too familiar. Then they entered 3 women, tall, alien, beautiful in a cold and cruel way. Lyra's sisters. They were not afraid. Their faces showed no surprise, only satisfaction. "You lived," one of them said. "How disappointing." Lyra stepped forward, no fear in her voice. "You came to finish what you started." The second sister sneered. "No, we came to retrieve what you stole. That core belongs to the Order. Your body belongs to the program." Jack tightened his grip. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. "I was never yours. Not then, not now." First sister's eyes narrowed. "And yet you ran to a human, let him feed you, protect you, touch you." She looked at Jack with disgust. "You are still a pet." Jack didn't speak. He didn't flinch. He just stood beside Lyra, and she noticed her voice cracked just slightly. "I'm not a pet. I chose him because he never chose to use me." Her sister stepped forward, but Lyra raised her hand. A pulse of energy pushed them back. Light shimmered around her fingertips, the fusion core responding to her thoughts. The second sister recovered quickly. "So it's true. You're bound to it. Now you're dangerous. And that's why we can't let you live." Suddenly, from behind the sisters, 2 more hunters entered, the same ones from the ruins above. their eyes glowing red, weapons raised. Jack aimed his rifle, but before he could fire, a voice echoed from the door. Waiting it was Lyra, her voice quiet, almost broken. Jack turned to her. "What is it?" Her head lowered, her hands trembled. "They made a deal with me." Jack froze. "What deal?" Lyra's words came out in a whisper. "If I return quietly, if I give them the core, they won't hurt you." Sisters smiled, watching her crumble. Jack's heart pounded. He stepped in front of her. "You believe them after everything they've done?" Lyra didn't answer. Tears slipped down her cheeks. The hunters advanced, weapons glowing. Jack raised his rifle again. This time, he didn't hesitate, but Lyra stepped between them. "Jack, please." She turned to her sisters, her voice louder. "Now we'll go. Just leave him alone." The oldest sister moved forward. "Touch her again, and your heart will stop." Lyra held up her hands, fingers glowing again, but not with power, with surrender. Jack shook his head. "This isn't you. You're stronger than this." Lyra met his eyes, and for a moment, everything else faded. "I can survive them. You might not." Jack's jaw tightened. He had nothing left to say. "Only trust." The sisters reached for her, wrapped cold restraints around her arms. The fusion energy dimmed as her body resisted. But she didn't fight. Jack felt rage boil in his chest, but he couldn't move. "Not yet." The oldest sister looked back at him. "Your kind never understands sacrifice." Then they turned and started to walk away. Lyra didn't cry. She didn't look back. But just before the door closed behind her, she whispered a single word. "Run!" And the lights exploded. Sparks filled the chamber. An alarm screamed from the control room. One of the hunters fell, the blast knocking it into a burning wall. Jack hit the ground, rolled to cover, his ears ringing. Through the smoke, he saw Lyra drop to her knees, the restraints burned off, the Genesis core glowing in her chest. Her sisters screamed in fury. "You lied to us." Lyra stood slowly, her voice steady again. "You lied to me first." Jack fired. The chamber erupted into chaos. Sparks, light, power. Lyra was no longer running. She was fighting. Lyra tries to protect Jack by surrendering to her sisters, but their betrayal snaps something inside her. She unleashes her true power, and the underground chamber becomes a war zone. Her chains are gone, and this time she's not backing down. The air inside the chamber was thick with smoke and silence. The fight had ended, but the echoes still haunted the walls. Jack's arm was torn, blood staining the torn sleeve, his breath shallow, body limp against the edge of a broken console. Lyra crawled to him, her hands trembling, her hair soaked in sweat. The glow from the Genesis core inside her chest was flickering like a fading flame. She reached him, pressed her hand against his heart. It still beat slow, weak, but alive. "Jack, wake up, please." Her voice broke. "You said you would stay. You said I wasn't alone. You don't get to leave now." Tears fell onto his chest, mixed with blood, mixed with ash. One of the hunters had fired before falling, and Jack had thrown himself between the blast and her. He never even hesitated. Lyra closed her eyes, focused on the energy in her hands. The Genesis core pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She had never tried to use it this way, never tried to heal, never believed she could, but Jack had believed in her. She placed both hands over his wound. Let the light rise from her palms. Let it flow into him, not just power, but memory, emotion, everything they had shared since the day he found her in that cage. "Night." She whispered his name, the firelight on his face. The first time she laughed, the way he called her family. She poured it all into him, hoping something inside him still listened. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Then Jack moved. A breath escaped his lips. His eyes opened slowly, and when they focused, they saw her. "Lyra, you're safe." She smiled, but it cracked. "You saved me again, even when I told you not to." He reached up, brushed a tear from her cheek. "It's not saving if it means losing you." She laughed softly, then winced. The energy inside her was unstable now. She could feel it fighting, not against her body, but against her heart. Jack sat up slowly, looked around the chamber. The sisters were gone. The hunters destroyed, but the core was growing brighter, unstable, as if it had tasted too much of what she carried. "We need to leave now." But Lyra didn't move. "Jack, I can feel something. There's a signal, a call from far beyond the rim. Something wants to connect." Something human. Jack's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Lyra pointed to the console. The Genesis core is waking up old systems, Earth systems, ones we thought were lost. Jack helped her to her feet. You think someone's still out there? She nodded. I don't just feel machines. I feel minds sleeping, waiting, and they recognize me because of what I am. Jack looked at the console. A new signal blinked. Unknown source. Encrypted but Earth-coded. You think this is a rescue? No, Lyra said quietly. I think this is a warning. Jack stood silent, then placed his hand over hers again. We figure it out together. Lyra looked at him, eyes full of fear, but also love. Why do you keep trusting me? Even now Jack's voice was calm. Because you never asked for any of this. Because you didn't give up. Because even when your own people threw you away, you still chose to protect someone else. He paused, then added, because you remind me what it means to be human. Lyra smiled, then pressed her forehead to his. You gave me a name, you gave me a reason to survive, and now I'll give you a reason to hope. The console buzzed again. A message blinked across the screen. Incoming fleet, unknown alliance. 7 days out. Jack stepped back. Read the message twice. This is big. Bigger than just us. Lyra nodded. I think my blood wasn't made just to open doors. It was made to bring something back, something humanity lost. He stared at her. You read the key to all of it. She didn't deny it. But I can't do it without you. Jack reached for her hand, held it tightly. Then we don't run anymore. We prepare, and when they come, we show them what it means to be more than an experiment, to be more than a weapon. We show them what it means to be human. Jack nearly dies protecting Lyra. She uses her core-bonded energy to bring him back. But the power inside her is changing, revealing a deeper connection to Earth's forgotten systems. They're not just running anymore. They've awakened something. And a mysterious fleet is now on its way. Time is running out. 7 days passed like a slow-burning storm. Jack and Lyra stood on the edge of the old world, watching the sky crack open as ships began to descend. But this time, it wasn't just scavengers or hunters or traders of life. This was something else. Alliance of unknown origin formed in the shadows of forgotten systems, and they were coming straight for the Genesis signal. Lyra stood inside the ancient control chamber, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. The fusion core inside her had grown quiet. Not because it was weak, but because it was waiting for the moment it was needed most. Jack finished sealing the bunker doors, his body still healing, his spirit unshaken. They had chosen to stay, not because they wanted war, but because running no longer made sense. This place, this broken ruin, had become something more than shelter. It had become purpose across the valley. New ships touched the ground, armored creatures spilled out, some human, some hybrid, some wrapped in tech Jack had never seen before. They carried weapons, and they carried questions, but they were not alone. Behind them, one massive ship rose into the clouds, black, silent, its surface covered in symbols both alien and earthborn. Lyra stared at it, her voice low. That ship knows me. I can feel it. Jack stood beside her. Then we let it see you. They stepped outside together, the wind whipping around them, dust lifting into the air like a curtain. The invaders paused, their weapons raised, but none fired. Lyra moved forward, her hands glowing softly, her body pulsing with the same light that powered their ancient systems. One of the armored soldiers stepped out, spoke through a translator. You are the anomaly, the core, the girl who awakened Genesis. Lyra nodded. I am what you tried to erase, what you tried to forget. The soldier tilted his head. You should not exist. Jack stepped forward, and yet here she is, standing free, not controlled, not owned. The commander of the fleet appeared on a floating platform, tall, clad in silver armor, eyes hidden behind a glowing helm. He spoke with a calm voice. You threaten the balance of order. If you connect to the remaining human networks, you could overwrite control. You could break containment. We cannot allow that. Lyra didn't flinch, then try and stop me. The air exploded with sound. Weapons fired, light cut across the sky. But Lyra was already moving. Energy surged from her palms. A wave of force knocked the front line backward. Jack raised his rifle, took cover beside her, firing into the chaos. The battlefield turned into a storm of metal and flame, but Lyra didn't stop. She ran forward, straight toward the command ship, her body surrounded by light, her voice clear through the noise. You made me to be your tool, but I am not a tool. I am not a pet. I am not a secret. I am proof that hope cannot be silenced. The ship tried to rise, tried to pull back, but it was too late. Lyra reached it, placed her hands on the hull, and the light inside her poured into it. The sky turned white, the ground shook for one endless moment. The fleet froze. Jack dropped his weapon, eyes wide. Everything around him, every enemy, every drone, every sensor, shut down. The Genesis core had done more than fight. It had rewritten the field. Lyra collapsed in the dust, smoke rising from her skin, the glow now silent. Jack rushed to her, pulled her into his arms. Lyra, stay with me, please. Her eyes opened slowly, a weak smile on her lips. Did we win? Jack nodded, voice cracking. You did more than win. You gave us a future. She exhaled softly, her fingers brushing his cheek. Then maybe I can rest now. He held her tighter. No, not yet, because the sky was changing again, not with enemies, but with signals from across the stars. Old human beacons were lighting up one by one, connected by her sacrifice. They were listening again. They were answering, and they were coming home. Days later, the valley was quiet. Jack stood by the bunker entrance, looking at the rebuilt signal tower, now sending light into the stars. Beside him, Lyra stood barefoot in the grass. Alive, healing changed her body, no longer pulsed with wild power, but something stronger had taken its place. Peace. She looked up at the stars, then turned to Jack. Do you still think I'm dangerous? Jack smiled. Only if someone tries to take you away from me again. She laughed softly, then leaned into him. Together they watched the sky, not with fear, but with hope, because this time they were not waiting for rescue. They were the reason others would be saved. Not a cage, not a weapon, not a project, but a girl with a name, and the human who refused to leave her behind. Lyra and Jack face a full fleet sent to erase her. She unleashes the full Genesis energy to shut them down. Her body burns with power but survives. Her sacrifice rewires Earth's lost networks. They become the light that reawakens hope across the stars, and they choose to stand together as more than survivors, as symbols of what humanity truly means.